Hello and welcome to Insight, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odikpo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you for joining us on Insight today.
The Nigerian mining sector is in focus on Insights this week, seeing how that sector continues to attract domestic and international investors. This is despite the many challenges impeding its potential as a major revenue earner for Nigeria, especially in its quest for economic diversification. We will be focusing on what the authorities are doing in handling the numerous difficulties being experienced within the industry in order for Nigeria to reap the full benefits. Elizabeth is here and she will be handling the rest of the discussion on this episode of the program. Elizabeth?
Well, of course, following an advisory by NSCDC on human metapneumovirus, we will also be assessing Nigeria's preparedness and response mechanisms to disease outbreaks. And if time permits, we will also delve into sports development from the perspective of an ex-international.
Very well then, let's kickstart the program.
Whatever the issues are,
the National Assembly is constitutionally empowered to scrutinize.
However complex or intricate.
We have involved all the academia, the members of the academia. We have involved the academies.
Be it government policies or in fact any issue of public concern.
Our job is to help you gain clarity and make sense of it all.
This is not really healthy for our democracy.
There's a lot of aggrievance in terms of who has been in power longest and who becomes the governor of the state.
It's also in the quality of food being consumed.
After all, a section is insight.
And gaining understanding is also getting insight.
Nigeria's mining sector, though seen as underdeveloped, appears solid and multifaceted. Take the Zamfara experience as an example where the nation stands to gain much by revitalizing mining activities, of course, with necessary security as well as regulatory and logistical requirements to guarantee sustainability. Well, we'll talk about all of that and other larger issues as regards mining in Nigeria with my guest. My guest is Professor Charles Ofeogbu, Professor of Geophysics and consultant to the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development. Prof, thank you so much for joining us virtually from Awka, Anambra State. How is Awka?
Thank you so much. Awka is fine, and we're doing well.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Prof, we're trying to make
Prof,
the right decision. Right.
Yes, Prof. I do understand that ultimately we must, as a matter of necessity, bridge, the gap between natural endowment and our capacity for exploitation. But, Prof, I think it's best we begin this, this conversation, perhaps take Nigerians back to the basics in terms of geological data in minerals, geological data of minerals, I beg your pardon, in Nigeria, whether we're talking about in terms of location, whether it's estimated or proven reserves, and of course, the prospect for exploitation by investors. I know this data exists prominently in the oil and gas sector. We've seen how that has played out and continues to play out, and that is why investors there in that sector, they know which oil block has what and where, and they know all of that before even they make their bids. But Prof, can we say the same thing of the mining industry? Can you speak to that issue? The issue of availability and accessibility to high quality geological data in Nigeria for stakeholders' benefits in Nigeria's mining sector.
Yes, I think maybe in the past one could say we did not have a coordinated approach to data gathering and data collection, data analysis, and data banking to assist investors in the sector. Then currently, the Geological Survey Agency, through the Geological Survey Agency, the federal government of Nigeria has actually put in so much effort towards collection of data, analysis of data, high quality data. When I mean high quality data analysis, and actually put in a form where an investor at the press of the button can tell us what you want. If you say what you want, we'll tell you where to go and find it. We can also give you some preliminary information regarding the reserve estimates, regarding also the gaps in the data field. So all you need to do is to fill in the gaps and then move on with your evaluation and further exploration, evaluation, and possibly mine design and mining. At the moment, there's a program that is ongoing in phases, being anchored at the Geological Survey Agency of Nigeria. In that regards, we've done well as a country, much better than most other countries in the world.
All right, Prof. Of course, clearly it will seem like the ministry has done plenty of work in that regard. Of course, I know there are other areas as well that the ministry is doing some work or plenty of work as well. And I would like for us to talk about an area like that. I mean, like I said, there are plenty of issues to be addressed in this mining sector. And, you know, many had hoped that, you know, popularizing or the popularization, I should say, of, say, the integrated mineral exploration project would further open the space, the mining space. In fact, let's talk about and narrow this conversation, this particular issue, down to an issue like illegal mining activities that we see in Nigeria. And I'm quite definite on, you know, the activities and operations of these illegal miners in Nigeria where they are. And yes, they are still here. I know, Prof, that there was the Presidential Artisanal Gold Miners Initiative that was called PAGMIL under the Buhari administration. It was designed at the time, and maybe it still suffices now, to bring unlicensed fringe of actors and operators in this sector within a regulated umbrella. But does it suffice, Prof? And this is my question to you. Does it suffice to just, or to rename illegal miners as a way of absorbing them into the standard regulatory environment? Prof, how expansive do you, in your opinion, think the reforms as regards the operations of illegal miners and mining in Nigeria should be? And should PEGMIN, this P-I-G-M-I, PEGMIN, I should say, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it rightly, do you think it should be reviewed to specify timelines for integration rather than it continuing in perpetuity like as it would seem at the moment?
I think we need to set lines for this. Illegal mining activity, let me be frank with you, the bulk of mining activity in Nigeria today is illegal. In virtually every part of the country, it's totally illegal. We need to actually re-engineer both the regulatory terms, the regulators, their mindset, as well as the mindset of even the miners, the illegal miners themselves. We need to come together. We need to look at it because it's a serious problem affecting the progress of the mining sector. The mining sector is supposed to be very crucial, especially with what is going on now with the oil and gas sector. We should begin to look deeply into the mining. The government is doing enough, but I don't think we're addressing the issues point blank. I must say here categorically, being in Anambra State, where at the moment the state government's already set up a committee to reform the mining sector with me as chairman, what we have found out is that nearly 98%, 95 to 98% of so-called miners in the state are all illegal. But they're all carrying pieces of papers that suggest they're doing legal mining when they're not. The insecurity you have even in the state and in other states in this country as a consequence of illegality of the mining activities, it becomes a source of revenue for criminals, becomes a source of revenue for people who failed enterprises. You fail in one enterprise, you jump into mining and you begin to dig up the soil and create and destroy the entire environment. Illegal mining, we must address it point blank squarely. There are some, within the Mining Act, within the mining guidelines, there are certain things that are put in place to contain illegal mining. But the problem is, to what extent are they being implemented? To what extent are they being funded? There are some agencies, some organs that have been set up to assist in that. You have such organs as Miremco. You also have such things as mining cooperatives that are supposed to address this, bring together the illegal miners, formalize them, train them, set them into cooperatives, and thereby reduce the problems of illegality in their action. And also save their health, because illegal mining is also contributing a great deal. Nobody has sat down to even check what is going on. Go to Zamfara. The level of cancer level of the type of diseases you come to Anambra, go to any state, do a survey proper. Does the Federal Ministry of Health ever bother to check to what extent is this affecting the health? And where you destroy the health of a woman, the health of a guy, you destroy the health, you destroy the livelihood of the children and of that family. So much is going on. People are going under tunnels, washing materials, very hazardous. Nobody even discloses where you have radioactive materials and where you don't have it. And the thing is affecting farming, fishery, all kinds of things. So we need to put our house in order. And whether or not there's need for re-engineering, we need to re-engineer, even those of us who appear to be involved with the regulation, with the regulatory organs, we need to ourselves to engineer ourselves and ask ourselves sincere, simple questions, and we should give straight answers. Are we prepared to assist this country? And if we are not, we'll make way for those who are prepared to. I like to be very blunt. From my experience, we can check illegal mining if we have the right mindset, the right determination, and the rules are there, the laws are there, the provisions are there, the funds are even there, through the Bank of Industry, through the Solid Mineral Development Fund. We can put the house in order.
Interestingly, Prof, you brought up a couple of issues. I mean, yes, you referenced the Mining Act, and I'll come back to that. You've talked about environmental impact, or rather you've looked at it from the environmental perspective. You've raised the core issue of security. And in referencing the Mining Act, in fact, that was when you talked about the core issue of security. I know that, yes, the ministry has evolved what it called the mining police. These are I think they call them the mine marshals or thereabouts. And then, yes. And then the Mining Act references or talks about the provision of protection or security for those licensed to operate. But then it doesn't talk about the quality or capacity of the kind of security to be provided for those licensed to operate. And you talked about Zamfara and the insecurity there. What kind of guarantee does the Mining Act provide, especially for those licensed or licensed miners, in terms of quality and in terms of dependability of that protection?
Well, I think the key problem starts with first asking ourselves the question: who are the licensed miners? There are people who are carrying about briefcases with papers suggesting that they have licenses to mine. How were those papers acquired? We must begin to ask that question, because if you want to go, you must go with equity. You must go with very clean hands. And we need to begin also to look at, you have a mining marshal, mining police. You can never operate those organs in isolation of the local authority, the communities, and the state governments. Because at the end of the day, you are setting up those police to marshal the states, to go around the states, to whom. For example, let me give you I always like to speak from point of view of experience. These mining police, as you say, where are they? Where are their offices? With whom do they coordinate? Who do they work hand in hand with? I'm sorry to say it, it's our country, and we must tell ourselves the truth. What now happens is that you see people roaming the environment, roaming around, and they tell you they've come to implement this. You see where the environment is totally destroyed. You are carrying a piece of paper called a mining license, and you are destroying the environment, and then you expect the police to protect you to continue destroying the environment. This is where some states come in and say, no, we don't agree. Yes, you are in charge of giving these licenses, but we have to protect the community, protect the environment, and also save our people, the future life for the generation yet unborn. Now, the insecurity you're talking about, that these police are supposed to check. Some of this insecurity is so entrenched within even the mining sector itself. A lot of people carrying licenses are not being security checked. You must check, give the man a security check. Let us even know. Let's know to what extent he's clean, even to carry that paper called a license. We must therefore find a way of first. You don't protect a criminal who is himself also contributing to the insecurity of the area where he's operating. We must therefore, of necessity, sit down around the table. The federal government, the federal minister of mine should be there, the state governments is there, maybe represented by the governors forum. You have the local governments should also be there because now they have autonomy. You have the local government should be there. Then the communities themselves have to be there. I give you an example. There are parts of the southeast where there are no gold areas, but these are areas very rich in minerals. People are carrying the licenses, but you dare not go near there to confront them or to control what they're doing. Because by the time you set a foot near 1 foot or even 1 kilometer to the place, you start hearing gunshots. So where is the security? Are we providing security for illegality? We must ask ourselves basic questions. That security must be provided for purely legal miners. And we must determine and ask ourselves, who are the legal miners?
You know, Prof, aside the issue of security, aside the issue of security, which is germane, of course, to our discourse and also germane to, whatever progress would make in the mining industry, whether or not would unlock the full potential in that industry. Your allusion, clear allusion to the seeming conflict or contention between the national and subnationals, would lead me to a question, on rather contentious question, or the conflicts, over control and monitoring of exploitation operations by the federal, state, and local governments. Can I ask how the current situation impacts, for instance, incentives for mining and the attractiveness for investors? And Prof, as far as you are concerned, who should be responsible for what? Whether in terms of delineation of duties, amongst the national and subnational and local governments, take the issue of infrastructure, for instance, like when we would need roads, we need rail, we need power, Who takes what? Who is responsible for what, in your opinion? Or who should be responsible for what, at what level?
Yes, I said the federal government, working through the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, has the responsibility, in fact, provided for in the Constitution, to oversee the extractive industry, petroleum and solid minerals inclusive. But to succeed in doing this, they must carry along the subnationals. By that I mean the states. Within the states also, you must carry along the local government authorities, which today, by the way, now have some degree of autonomy, financial and otherwise. And then within the local governments must carry along the communities, the traditional institutions, the town development organs. And by so doing, you can now have a seamless process in the mining sector. But so long as somebody sits somewhere and determines that this is what should be done, without trying to have a synergy, without trying to bring together the different, then you keep having the conflicts we're having now. Then you hear people saying states are interfering and not. Mind you, yes, you can give a license, but you cannot give a license to come and destroy a road built by a state. You cannot give a license to come and create health issues that are only going to be addressed by a state. You cannot give a license to cause loss of environmental degradation, death, and so on. And at the end of the day, the town unions are not involved. You carry people come, they must require consent. The law provides for it. But whether or not it is implemented, the law, the act provides clearly for it. How do you give a license? What are required for a license? Until you begin to try to reform the system and ask questions, you will never realize that those conditions are never met and licenses are being issued. Some people, though some of us who are privileged, as we are leaving office, one of our benefits is a briefcase filled up with mining licenses. That's the problem we had in Zamfara. That's the problem we have in Nasarawa. That's the problem we have in different places. You call the man, he opens his briefcase, he gives you a piece of paper, it's a license. Ask him the location of where that place is, he doesn't know. He said they gave it to me. I have experienced it as someone who has been consulting. And I say, some of them have, on a matter of principle, refused to be involved. So how come you have these briefcase carrying miners who at the end of the day are part of the problem? So, and then the states are intervening, yes. In Anambra State, for example, the states are not saying that they have powers to license to ban or to license miners. All they're saying is that we want to be convinced that the people carrying these licenses and causing this devastation are in actual fact miners. Some of them are psychologically, some of them have psychological problems. When a man goes to a place and starts excavating and then buildings are falling over and what have you, and roads are being destroyed, obviously he needs to see a psychiatrist. He's not a miner. Miners are the most caring people because they work with nature and they love nature. True miners love nature and they work with nature and they try to ensure that the nature is maintained. As they're removing, they're refilling, they're planting trees, and then corporate social responsibility. You go mining, you can't even contribute to the medical health care of the people. You can't even say, oh, let me in this school put a laptop or put one system computer or even help them set up a laboratory or even teach the younger ones that you have these resources. Can we now train you to even appreciate that behind your door, behind your house, you have gold. This is what gold is. These are all part of corporate social responsibility. Is not when you pump million and share million to a few people to go and spend while the community is suffering. Then who signs off on the community development agreement, which is provided by the law? Go and pick up some of them if you've ever monitored the activities. Pick up some of them, you find out that there are no CDS. They're not. It's just a group of one family can bring 20 people and they sign up on behalf of the community. And the mines officer or what have you signs off on it and it goes up. As far as I'm concerned, CDA has been done. It has not been done. That's why I say all of us have responsibility to be really.
So it is clearly a collective responsibility, or rather, we would need a collective. If we're going to have impactful change, it has to be one that is a collective effort. Prof, considering all that considering all that you've painted, I mean the scenario or multiple scenarios that you've painted, how it stands currently? I mean, because earlier I asked about how this situation impacts on, the incentives and attractiveness, of this sector for investors. As it stands currently, what therefore is the efficacy of Nigeria's, fiscal and non-fiscal incentives in attracting investors, to this sector? Or attracting investment to the mining sector, and to what extent do these incentives align with global best practices? How do they align with investors' expectations? And how do they also align with the country's development goals, particularly in relations to our economic diversification goals, revenue generation, and sustainable development?
I think the lack of synergy and the crisis that we have in the mining sector discourages investors. Nobody wants to bring in billions or bring in millions or bring in investment into a sector that is disjointed. We need to put our house in order, come together and make it seamless so that if somebody is coming in with investors, it doesn't end up becoming again like the oil sector, what you had in the petroleum industry. When basically we do not carry along the communities, we do not carry along the local government and so on. So you go there, you start finding a crisis of kidnapping, crisis of disruption of operations. If we do things right, as put in the Mining Act, we won't have any problem, and investors will come. My biggest problem, yes, you do the technology, gather the data, and when you've gathered the data and the man has collected the data and everything, and he's happy to, for example, move into Nasarawa State. Have you prepared the grounds in Nasarawa State sufficiently peaceful enough for him to move in there? Why? You need to do that. And the only way you can do that is to carry along both the state, the local government, the communities, the community, and the families, landowners, to say the least. And at the end of the day, it will be so peaceful, so organized. But at the moment, we don't have that. We will be telling ourselves a lie if we say we do. The problem is that there's this overbearing complaint. States are interfering. Have you found out why they are interfering? Most times they're not interfering in selfish interest. They are interfering in overriding public interest. The public interest of the state, which for every governor, the governor swears to maintain and sustain the integrity of the environment of his state, the health of the citizens of his state, and the well-being of his state, and peace and security of his state. So if an activity engineers insecurity, if an activity engineers poor health, engineers the environmental damage, the degradation of infrastructure, because the roads are mostly built by the state, not federal government. Mining roads in this country are not federal roads, they're all state roads and community roads. So when you are destroying those roads and you don't carry them along, they are bound to complain and they're bound to tell you, hey, wait a minute, you cannot continue. And that's what is going on now. And we need to come back and sit down. The next mining council should have a session. The next mining council, we were to hold it in Nasarawa State, but it was, some of us were already heading to Lafia when it was put up. We need to sit down and have a session and say, can we now discuss this? So that going back from mining...
And Prof, sorry to butt in here. I understand that the Mining Council is now a big deal. I mean, compared to what we used to, or what obtained in the past. The Mining Council under the current administration is somewhat of a conference of just about every stakeholder in the sector. So it becomes a good place to table some of these issues, perhaps review some of the policies on ground, and resolve some of the issues. Is that right, Prof?
Yes, that's what it should be, and that's the essence of that. That's supposed to be where we look at the different policies. That's where we should even generate any modifications, any amendments to the act, and say, in the light of experiences and so on, shared experiences, we need to now do this. We will sit down in an air-conditioned conference room somewhere and say we are modifying the act. You must come to the conference, you must come to the Mining Council and sit down with all stakeholders. Set up a group, a working team. That working team should by now be working, preparing for the council, and now present a report of what it has agreed. Take the states where active mining is going on, where there are these interventions, where you believe these interventions are taking place. Bring them all together, sit down and say, let's see now how we can move. The Mining Act provides for everyone to be a party, to participate.
Prof,
yes,
I
you
noticed,
have a mining license.
Prof, I noticed how you've played the devil's advocate for the states, for the subnational on this issue. I mean, you have not disguised that interest. but I'd like, in wrapping up our conversation, I'd like for us to talk about something else that I think is quite germane. And this is drawing from the MOU that we've signed with France, for instance, and yes. Now I see that mining is not just an economic or not just for economic or social impact. It has what is now considered today as geopolitical significance. And of course, when I referenced Nigeria's MOU with France. So as we know, both countries have agreed to collaborate on research, on training, and Franco-Nigerian students exchange for knowledge and skills transfer. Yes, we need further technical and financial capacity development and support in the sector. And yes, again, the bigger players would help local players here in Nigeria learn how big mining is done and what the game is at that stage. But is that necessarily the best option to opening up an international mining corridor that allows smaller miners in Nigeria to operate at the level of big players, with access to the international markets and knowledgeable enough to understand the game? Is that our best option, Prof?
I think this country has the right manpower. Some of us have been out of this country, impacting knowledge.
Because, Prof, I wanted to say this is the scenario that is currently playing out in our oil and gas sector, where players who learned from the bigger ones are now in charge.
Yes. So what I want to say is that yes, it's fine to have a collaboration, to have agreements, multinational agreements signed up between presidents and what have you. But we must bring it down to earth and say where and how does it fit in. Provided, you notice France, for example, they are being kicked away from Niger, Chad, and so on, where they were in total control of the uranium mines and so on. And then I do hope that it's not the same type of support that given to Nigeria, where you pay back by now establishing a monopoly of the assets of this country. It will not be good for us. They can, after all, we've always had foreign aids, we have always had the Commonwealth, we've always had all that. It has never become like an MOU for a sector where you virtually transfer control of the sector. Go and read that MOU very well. You find out that one way or the other, all we're saying is that we're transferring the entire contents of this sector to France. Little wonder, people started even saying that we now have French military bases in Nigeria.
Well, the ministry has clarified that area, and even the government has said no such thing is happening. That what is happening is just, knowledge exchange and, some of the issues that I reeled out earlier, Prof.
Yes. But we have to be careful.
Indeed.
Let's build from home. We have already trained enough. Let the people who have trained. So what I'm saying is, we must not, all these jamboree of MOUs have been signed. Ask ourselves, all the MOUs have been signed in the past by this country, by Nigeria. To what extent has this changed the different sectors for which those MOUs were signed?
Hopefully we begin to see the change that we envision and envisage with some of them, Prof. If, like you said,
we're all still here. I will all still be here we'll all still be here to mark the score sheet, to give the score sheets, and say yes, it was okay. And all I want to say is that this country is blessed. We're endowed with human resources. We're endowed with whatever it. Go outside Nigeria. Nigerians go from Nigeria as on offshore postings in the petroleum industry. They support the petroleum industry in India. I had a brother who was a cement engineer, goes from Halliburton to India to work and so on. And then we don't need anybody to come to educate us. What you can do is to come work with us. There must be parity, equality, parity. Not to tell me now that you're bringing me knowledge, R&D. Yes, a lot of us have been traveling in and out of Nigeria to study. I did my PhD.
Prof, we've lost the light there. It appears the people who own the public power supply have taken it. Let's quickly sign you off at this point. Great. Yes. We can barely see your face.
You can't run a processing plant at energy, and at the end of the day, this is where we'll start. We should start planning.
And we talked about some of these infrastructural logistics earlier, and whose responsibility. When we're delineating duties, whose responsibility is what. Let me just quickly thank you at this point, Professor Charles Ofeogbu, Professor of Geophysics and consultant to the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development. It's unfortunate we can't see your face clearly anymore, but we saw your handsome face earlier. Let me just, on behalf of Avio, thank you so much for your insight on this matter, and thank you so much for joining us on Insight, Prof.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's it on my segment. I'll hand you off now to Elizabeth Omori for the continuation of the program.